Oh, sorry, that wasn't directed at you, that was just, I like to do it, sorry. Sorry. Sometimes there isn't a gavel, so it's nice to get them in when I can. It is 6:01 p.m. I'm calling to order the Monday, June 5th, 2023 meeting of the Lancaster Select Board. First, a reminder to folks that this is being recorded and broadcast on Sterling-Lancaster Community Television. And first step up is a roll call. Ms. Turner.
Here. Mr.
Allison. Here. Mr. Kerrigan here. So we are all here and accounted for. First item up is the approval of the minutes for the Select Board's meeting of May the 15th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll offer a motion to approve the minutes of May 15th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I'm sorry, could I just, a couple quick discussion points?
That's why I said any discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It was brought to my attention, I got an email that Joe Duramo had made comments asking that we follow, during this comment period, that we follow the town meeting language.
Would you like to make an amendment to the minutes?
I would amend the public comments to reflect Mr. Duramo's comments to include that he would include the charge given.
Sorry, just
it's under public comment, first paragraph, second sentence, including the charge given, and just insert at town meeting.
So the earlier part of the sentence where it says formed by the annual town meeting isn't sufficient for you?
Apparently, well, the details which we have, which are great, that we got in today's packet, might be a little bit confusing. So I guess that was that was meant to clarify. So if that's okay, we can.
But you've got to make a motion. And
I would like to make an offer, a motion to amend the minutes just to say they include the charge given or stated at the annual town meeting 2023, excuse me.
Okay, tell me exactly where we're inserting this first. At the end of what sentence? Because if we're amending minutes, that means
that's true.
People are criticizing the minutes, so we want to make sure the minutes are.
No, the minutes are always, as always, very good.
Understood.
So at the end of the second, in the middle of the second sentence, formed by annual town meeting, period. And then I would write, capital H, he would like to include the charge.
So let's undo the grammar here. Just tell me where you want. He would like to include the charge given, including the charge given. You just want at annual town meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the amendment is after the words including the charge given, you want at annual town meeting added. Is that your amendment proposed?
That would work.
Okay. Is there a second?
For minutes.
I will second. Is there any discussion? Hearing. It's on page 1 of 10 of the minutes.
Okay.
It's on page 5 of the packet.
And I wrote it out if you'd like to.
It's pretty relatively clear. I would say, let's be very clear that minutes are summaries of, for everyone watching, minutes are summaries. They're not meant to be transcripts. I will vote in favor of this amendment because it doesn't matter for the sub and substance, but we should also realize that these minutes are put together and the intention is to be a summary of the thoughts and not an exact transcript. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. 2-1-0.
And one other quick question.
We now have to, we're still in the middle of the motion to approve the minutes as now amended.
Yes.
But we are still in the middle of it, so I will ask, is there any further discussion?
Yes.
What is that?
First, kudos to our minute taker. Their minutes are excellent. So that was the.
That's on.
It says, no, it says respectfully submitted, Kathleen Rocco, and I don't know who our minute taker is, but should we just?
They're submitted on behalf of Kathleen Rocco. Yeah, that's been everyone you voted on since you've been on this board has said that, so.
I understand that.
Okay. Do you have an amendment you wish to make?
No, that's fine.
Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amended minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed.
Okay, 2-1-0. All right. Off to a gangbusters start, and now we are into public comment. So I will remind folks, it's the Wild West according to the Supreme Judicial Court. So, we start as always in the room. We are asking you to stand up at the not the microphone, at the podium. Tell us your name and address. We hope you're respectful, but again, you're not legally required to be. And then when people are done in the room, we will go to the Zoom. On the Zoom, if you wish to be heard, please put up your virtual hand. We will call on you in order seen. All right. There you go.
127 Harvard Road. I was the one that submitted the corrections to the minutes that we just talked about. And I think it's great that we have the minutes. They're reproduced timely and they're usually accurate. But the two items that I cited were not accurate. And I stated what my husband had actually spoken. So, and the next time, if the minutes need to be amended, I can submit that instead of what he stated.
I haven't seen your email, so I don't know when it was sent.
And I find it surprising that Mr. Allison didn't want to correct minutes that were inaccurate.
That's his right.
Also, for the Memorial School Committee, I don't know what the discussion is going to be tonight, but I think there needs to be more public comment provided before spending money on a study or whatever. I think there needs to be more public sessions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the room wish to make public comment at this time? Okay. Seeing none. Tom, we're going to go with you first. Please name and address. And unmuted.
Working mistake. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Hi, I'm Tom Seidenberg, 748 George Hill Road, recently voted chairman of the Conservation Commission. First, I'd like to introduce myself to the board and Administrator Hodges. I hope I can develop a productive relationship with all of you. I have two things that I'd like to discuss. First, I want to discuss the invasives removal project at Thayer Field. I'd be happy to recap the discussions at the point in the meeting if you want me to, but the main point that I want to make this evening is that I'm not last I understood, Administrator Hodges was proposing that this project be paid for out of wetlands funds. And the point I want to make this evening is I'm not sure that that's actually legal. Specifically, according to Department of Revenue Information Guideline Release 98-101, wetlands funds can only be expended for things that are directly related to administering or enforcing the Wetlands Protection Act. So this would include something like funding an employee, paying for the drafting of orders, paying for peer reviews, and legal opinions for enforcement actions.
Hey,
but
Tom,
I don't believe
Tom,
that it would apply to removing invasive species. So I don't know if something's changed since then. Sorry, go ahead.
She didn't, so just I don't want you to spend too much of your time on this. She did not, and I'll reset the clock a little bit, she did not suggest paying for it out of wetlands. I'm sure we'll discuss that later in the program, but I just didn't want you to spend more time on that. But I appreciate it.
So that may be a misunderstanding on my part. That was the last information I had when it was last discussed.
Yep.
The other comment that I have is in the past, I feel that boards and committees were given an opportunity to comment on appointments. And I don't believe that I was aware of the appointment of, or that the commission was given the opportunity to speak with Mr. Windsor. And also I was under the impression from conversations with former Chairman Christopher that another resident was also interested in being on the commission. So I would just ask that instead of making the appointment today, that we delay until the next meeting, give the commission an opportunity to talk to Mr. Windsor and have a discussion. And maybe that other person isn't interested anymore, or maybe someone else would come out of the woodwork, but that, that's my only request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom, appreciate it. And thank you for your willingness to serve as chair of the Conservation Commission. Next up is Victoria Petracca. Name and address, Victoria.
Victoria Petracca, 67 Woodland Meadow Drive, and I am here just to spread the word that there is an affordable unit available in Lancaster. It's a really lovely unit, and I just want folks to know, so these are hard to come by. So anyway, there's a condominium. It's at Blue Heron. It's a home ownership opportunity. The asking price is $250,700. It's a 2-bedroom unit, 2.5 bathrooms. There's a garaged parking space. It's got lots of great things about it. And it was up for lottery, and it actually, this is a really unusual circumstance. The monitoring agent only received one application, and it turned out that it didn't pan out. So they're offering this unit on a first come, first served basis. So strike while the iron is hot, Lancaster, and just wanted to spread the word. It's a great unit, great opportunity for an income eligible household. And you can get more information by just reaching out to me. I'm on the website for the Affordable Housing Trust, and I'll send you the contact information for the agent. So that's all. I'm just making a plug for this affordable housing opportunity in Lancaster.
Thank you, Victoria. Appreciate it. Sounds like a great unit. Thank you. Mr. Moody, you are up next. Name and address, sir.
Yeah, Jay Moody. Hope I found that one.
We can hear you.
144 Southern Ridge Road. I have several comments. I believe that Lancaster, the town, is more caring and giving a lot more positive, or needs to give a lot more positive action, thanking people and boards for volunteering their time and energy to make our town better. I found out this week when a Boxborough resident dies that they put the flag at half-staff per day. If it's a committee member or a board member, they do it for 2 days. If it's a selectman, they do it for 3 days. I just think it's a simple way to give some thought to it. I also believe that a former town planner, Noreen Piazza, who worked so tirelessly on the 117 through Route 70 intersection for years, and I was with her part of the times at all the meetings. And I'd like to see that if we could get her to come when we open that road, just to give her a little information. The other thing she also did was the Energy Commission, which I see you have on the list. We had a 5-member board with her as a member. Is not a member, but running it. She gave us every month, we knew exactly how much electricity, how much gas, how much oil was being used by the town in every place. We replaced the street lights with LED lights. We did the work down in the police department, putting in a heating system, put another heating in the system for the first floor of the fire department. And we also got the big grant for the Prescott building. My other comment was mostly about the government study committee. I think I've wasted a year. I've got nothing. I don't think we've accomplished anything. I think we need a new meeting and a list of what we're going to do and have it done. I mean, we have nothing. We have nothing to show for what we've done for a year.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
Yep.
Anybody else for public comment? In the room or on the Zoom? Oh, that rhymed. Okay, great. Then we will close public comment. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If anybody, I'm assuming if there's items that are further down in the agenda, we are proceeding as we normally do, that public comment is over and we're not taking it. So in other words, speak now or forever hold your peace.
It's the way the process has been
Okay.
for,
Just,
I mean, if there's time, then we can entertain it, but
okay.
that's why we have public comment.
I just want to make sure people knew.
That's why we have public comment. We'll be discussing the items that I think
Okay.
folks in the room are concerned with.
Okay.
But that's why we have public comment where it is. That things haven't changed in the time you've been sitting here.
I know, I understand.
Okay. Town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael Silva has accepted the position as Lancaster's new building commissioner.
Thank
He
you.
will start on July 1st. He is currently the commissioner in Leicester, and he has a bachelor's in information systems specific to accounting from Bryant. He also holds a construction supervisor's license. He owned his own business for 16 years. Doing construction and then moved to the municipal side. So he has come highly recommended by the state inspector. He was the #1 choice of the panel of 5, and then on a secondary panel with a member of the planning board, myself and the police chief. Really excellent answers to a lot of our questions, believes in education for residents, doesn't approach anything in that the resident is trying to, not pull a permit, just it's an educational component, and, really quantifies himself as a business-friendly person, but also wants buildings to be responsible in size and scope, etc. So really great. And his computer systems analysis is really excellent as we work to integrate Permit Pro into the vehicle that is going to be driven with a tough book, so that instead of having all of this paper that's carried around, the whole system will be automated so that the plans and permits, etc., can be updated while in the field immediately. In the past, we'd have to bring paper back, and so that's really great that he has that expertise. We put an offer out to the top candidate for the assistant town clerk. That information isn't public yet, but the person is letting it marinate a little, and hopefully we will hear soon, and so I would anticipate by the next meeting I'll have an announcement to make for that, which is great. The person is professional and re-entering the workforce after time at home with their children. So more to come on that. And the cemetery and tree hired one of the 2 positions, a young man from Lancaster, and they still have 1 more position open. So we're having much better success in hiring folks. So I think that that's been very encouraging for all of us.
Thank you for that.
For the one-step grants, we're excited that we got word last week on the #1 submission that we had, which was about $100,000 to create a master plan and several multi-step assistant co-ops relative to mixed-use development at the DCAM property, including the creation of what could be site amenities, having some community forums, ideas of mixing active and passive recreation. And one of the things that we had talked about at a staff level and likely will come forward with is developing an RFP such that we would give some type of incentive to a builder that would then basically renovate one of the buildings to build a community center for us and then gift that as part of the parcel. What's good about that is that the money and effort that we put into that, including the staff time, can come off of the top of the sale of the property. So that would come off of that, and then we would use the aggregate that's left to split with DCAM. So that's very helpful for us to be able to hopefully get something like that. So we have been given permission to apply to the second portion of that, and hopefully we'll be working with math development on further refining that. The legislation had a hearing the week of 5/22, and Representative Kilcoyne submitted testimony respectfully requesting a favorable report on our bill to the committee for the DCAM property. I followed up with an email on May 30th, and they said that it's still moving through committee. So that's good news. Things are moving along there. Let me see, the Energy Committee was on here because really it was a clarification for me. I know Ms. Turner had mentioned wanting to get them more involved when we spoke about the municipal aggregation program. At least one resident came to see me since then who's still on the committee but has said that they haven't met in more than 18 months. So I'm not sure how to proceed from here. It's pretty unusual that a committee would just pick up after 18 months, so I don't know if the charge needs to be revisited, if all of the people that are there are still wanting to serve. So just looking for a little direction there. And the Community Garden Center ADA pathway, the plantings from the grant are in back of the community center, as well as the berms have been completed. The grant was for $5,000. That paid for the plants, the plantings, and the mulch. We're also extending the water line underground to the community garden. That hadn't been done in the past and often gets run over by the lawnmower because it's green, as is the grass. The loam was donated by Ryan Aldrich of Aldrich Excavating, and the materials to create the ADA pathway and the patio under the pergola are to be donated by PJ Keating. So once complete, it will be a $40,000 renovation at a zero cost to the town. So I just wanted to bring that to light because I think that's
right.
Well, I just think it's really nice that a lot of people stepped up and wanted to make that space really nice, and I think people are very appreciative of that. So.
Okay, I am grateful to them as well. My question on the Energy Committee, and if they haven't been active in 18 months, it predates my time on the board. Alex, I know you know a decent amount about this. Does it make sense at this point to re-examine their charge and look at the membership, perhaps have a joint meeting with them and determine their willingness to continue to serve? If they are not, then recruit for new members?
My understanding, my suggestion would be for any committee like this that had been inactive would be to bring in the members and talk to them and get their feedback, see what they would do. And meanwhile, we could benchmark and look at other energy committees in different communities to see if we think it's valuable to keep those members, not keep those members, do on. It would be a board decision. But I personally think an energy commission, as it is, we all know we're a green community, and our energy is such a cost driver and so on, that it's something that we should look at. I have, as Kate said, do feel that they should participate in some of the decisions that the town makes, but she's right that it has not met and has not
Who is the chair?
John Bowman.
Your husband? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
Okay, so there was another one?
At my understanding, and we don't, believe it or not, we don't talk about town stuff a lot, is that they had been waiting before your time, before Kate's time. They had been waiting for some information and just hadn't received it, so it's sort of lay fallow.
All right then.
So it would be good to, I think, good to have them in.
Okay.
I would be against having them in. I mean, I would be okay, Alex, if you want to meet with them individually and just come up with a plan. I don't know if we if we come to a meeting and then just start trying to figure things out, it feels like we could do that outside of the meeting and then present the plan to the meeting and we'll vote on it. And whether that's a new charge or current charge, current members, I would be all for that. Just go meet with them and come up with a plan.
Whatever the board decides.
My question would be, so fewer meetings are fine by me. My question is, I think both need to, so I guess the question is, were they appointed, these are questions that someone's going to be able to answer for us, were they appointed to a specific term? If so, how many have expired? If not, if it was, it doesn't sound like an ad hoc committee that expires when the task is done, because that task is never done. So I guess answering the question of who is still on the committee, I think is going to be important. I'm assuming we could check with the town clerk.
According to the website, because I looked at that in preparation for tonight's meeting. There was no expiration dates listed. Not to say that they may just not have been placed there, but.
So I think, I'm all for, if you want to carry this ball, I think that's fantastic, and determine but I'd love to hear back what the pre-existing charge was, what the membership terms were, and then sort of what the thoughts are going forward.
Okay, that's fine. I can report back at the next meeting.
I mean, if it takes longer, that's fine too. Yes.
I had a question, if I might, through the chair.
Which item is it about?
About the, there's lots of good information, but on the DCAM, or maybe the other grant, maybe it was the one-stop grant, I'm not sure. Kate mentioned that we had $100,000, which is wonderful. We earned a $100,000 grant for master plan. Is that strictly is that for our comprehensive plan, for the whole update, or was that just for DCAM?
That was in the one-stop grant updates.
Yeah, we're applying for it. We didn't receive it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We received the grant for $35,000 for an environmental phase 1 and phase 2 analysis and a building review, which we did last week and the week before.
Right, the MRPC grants. The one stop is
no, it's a mass development grant.
Mass development. I'm sorry. So the $100,000 is something that we're applying for, and that will be for a comprehensive plan, the master plan.
To piggyback, yes, after it's phase 2, after this part is done with the $35,000.
Okay, that's great. And is that, I'm sorry to be that, but I haven't seen it. Is that townwide?
It's just for DCAM. Okay. There's a second grant that we applied for a townwide master plan, but that's for basically benchmarking and some other things, but we haven't received word back on that yet. Okay. We did allocate funds to that in the capital plan, so regardless of the grant or not, that'll move forward.
Okay. Thank you. Good work on everything else.
Any other questions about the town administrator's report? I will take a moment, since we discussed DCAM. There's a lot of rumor in this town about a lot of things, and I just want to try to dispel at least one. I couldn't even tell you the date, but a couple of weeks ago, folks from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as they do on a regular basis, came to Lancaster and many other communities, as they're doing currently, to assess state-owned lands for a number of potential state purposes. This is, I want to stress, this is a routine check of land. Also, subsequent to that visit, there have been several visits to the same property at DCAM by state officials and town officials. Some in town have taken that to make it into some sort of encampment that's going to be built at the DCAM property, and a tent city is what I've heard, other things. I can tell you with all certainty there is no plan for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to build a tent city at the DCAM property or anywhere in the town of Lancaster. This was a routine assessment of state-owned property that, again, they do on a regular basis, which we probably never notice because they just come to their own property that they own. As you can imagine, the DCAM property, which has been sitting there for a long time, is not the only property like that across the Commonwealth. So the Commonwealth does an analysis of the buildings, the land, the structure. That is what that was. It is nothing further. So hopefully that dispels the rumor. There are plenty of scenarios people have suggested. The only one that bears any resemblance to the facts is this was a routine assessment of state-owned lands, and then days afterward, coupled with the fact that the town of Lancaster was working with the state on a project that we voted on twice at town meeting, and the legislature is considering relative to the transfer of the DCAM land to the town of Lancaster for development. Hopefully that dispels rumors, but usually when I make a comment on something, it tends to continue things, but hopefully that dispels the rumors for all the people paying attention. Okay.
And the governor did not attend our walkthroughs.
And I've heard...
Which would have been great.
Many people on Facebook have said, I know for a certainty that the governor was in Lancaster walking through the DCAM property. I assure you, she was not. She was not, the lieutenant governor was not. When I called the governor's office to inquire about this, it is so routine they didn't know about it, which is frankly what we want out of a governor's office because they're doing other things. They checked with all the different departments, came back with the answer that we suspected to be true. So anyone who suggests that they saw Governor Healy at the DCAM property should probably have their eyes checked. But she was not there then, nor has she ever been. So hopefully that puts it to rest. I doubt it will, but I hope it does. All right, now on to administration, budget, and policy. The memorial school reuse. Continued discussion and determinations of next steps. So, you all gave us a great presentation. When was that again? Do you remember? You probably remember exactly when it was.
February 5th, something like that.
What was that?
February 5th.
February 5th. We appreciate that. A lot of research and work has gone into it. We've received some information back that we're digesting. I know that the proposal, to recap for folks, is the proposal recommended, and I want to make sure I'm using the words right, proposal recommended by the reuse committee, which, by the way, and to echo Jay Moody's comments about thanking people for volunteering to the town, thank you for volunteering to the town. You, I think, I think we lost track, you're the third or fourth reuse committee, so we thank you for that work. The recommendation, I believe, was to use the space that is currently the school building, not the tertiary building, but the school building take that down and build a recreational pavilion. Am I summarizing it accurately? Okay. And then use the fields and whatnot for recreation purposes. There was questions about deed restrictions, things like that. We have had some work done. That was the work that we promised to do after the last meeting. We've received that information back. It is, I think, 50-something pages, so we're digging through it. We just got it a few days ago. I think it will be informative and instructive to us, or I hope it will be, and then and hopefully we can move the ball forward one way or the other. I do know that we have set aside, because the next step would be for engineering analysis of the structure to see if it's sound and all that. We have set aside in our capital planning resources for that. So don't think the horses left the barn and you guys don't have the money there. That is set aside. Let us do the work that we need to do on the reading the report that we've gotten back, and then hopefully we'll be able to move this forward. I know there's been some discussion about continued public involvement and engagement. I do think as we move this project forward, engaging the public in the proposal and the proposed designs, things like that, I think is going to be really important. But I just wanted to tell you sort of that's at least my understanding of where I am, at least. I still need time to dig through this report, but I don't know if my colleagues or the town administrator has any comment on that.
Nope,
Nope.
I don't.
Take the time you need.
Okay. You all can, if you all, I apologize, it's a lot of work. I think I know the sum and substance of it, but if you all have comments, you're welcome to share them at this point. Comments or questions?
No, thank you for, again, I echo Steve's thanks for your excellent presentation and our in-depth report about to answer some of the questions. I looked at it briefly, like you, I need to digest it more, but it did generate, upon the initial exam, it did generate some questions for me, process-wise. How do we want to deal with that? If the board has questions about our information, how do we want to deal with that?
So our policy would have you have questions, send them through the chair, and we'll provide responses.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine that we would want to have a future agenda item to formulate a plan.
And I want to make sure we give it a decent chunk of time. But this, I have a general sense what direction this is heading in, but I do want to make sure that I dig through and ask if there's a few questions I want to ask before we get too far out over our skis.
a good question would be, is there anything time sensitive?
That is a good question. I don't think there is, other than making sure we have that segregated, those monies, but.
Well, yeah, that's already in place. So we have about a year to spend that still left.
A year from today, so about 12 months?
Before the money expires.
Before the money expires, yeah.
We will not take that amount of time.
How much money?
I think we set aside 100,000.
Yeah, 100,000, I think, yeah. Yes, you can, yeah, sure. If you could ask them from there, just because the Zoom, the owl picks them up. Yeah.
I'm assuming you're gonna wanna know if Lisa.
Yep.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Sherry Cutler. Oh, well, thank you. How are you? Sherry Cutler, 67 Harvard Road. I am here as a member of the Memorial School Reuse Committee. So just a couple questions. I don't know if you can answer them or not, because I don't know if this goes back and forth. One, will we be, sorry, really bad allergies. Will we be able to get a report of that? Because after this meeting, we were going to, our meetings have been on hold, obviously waiting for this. So we would like to at least have another meeting. Will we be able to get a copy of the report? That's my first question.
We just have to make sure that we would have to waive privilege. So there's a couple of questions. We have to waive privilege with council.
Okay.
So there's a couple of questions I have of council before we waive privilege, and then we're not looking to hide anything. We asked for this report to be done, so we just have to waive privilege at the appropriate time, and then we can release it.
So do you know what that timeline is? Like, are we? And
hopefully soon. Like, honestly, we're not trying to hide
summer, and I get it. So are we looking at like a couple of weeks, or
No. I'm honestly, if it had come to us a week earlier, I would have had time. I just haven't had time. I had sinus surgery, which has messed up my entire life for the last several weeks. Yes, matter of weeks, not.
Okay, and that'd be getting the report to us. And then, do you know, as a committee, I also know everybody's on vacation, what do you think your timeline is fairly to look at this? I know it's big, and this is a big topic, and it's a hot topic. So what do you think realistically, like, your timeline is to read through this, to understand it, and to really comprehend it?
So my hope is that you mean the report from council and all that? Yeah, so my hope is that when we release it, I want to get the questions answered from council that I have, then we'll release privilege, and then you'll get it, and hopefully soon thereafter we'll be willing to discuss it. But
yeah, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I'm ready.
He's
thank you.
He's a quicker reader.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'm not.
And I don't think I'm far from it.
But it's a big document. We get it, so it's time. Also, you want to make sure it's the right thing.
No, I know.
All right, I have lots of questions, but.
No, I know, I get that. 22, we just got it, so. No, I know.
I'm just excited about the project and just.
I'm very excited about
to go, which way. I mean, I know the people that are on the committee are very enthused about it and very excited about this project. So I want to ask you so many questions about that report, but you're not going to answer it, are you?
No, but the one question I
will. Throw pens at you? Are we allowed to throw pens? No. I'm just kidding.
I don't think we're allowed to do that. No. And anybody, really. I think the one question I can answer is we'll get it to you as soon as we can.
Okay.
I don't have many questions. I can't speak for my colleague, but I don't have many questions that'll hold it up very long.
Okay.
Can we release privilege? We'll figure out the process. I don't know if do we have to have a meeting to vote to release privilege?
You would have to vote.
Okay. So maybe we would schedule like a 10 a.m. meeting one day or whatever it is. I don't want to hold it up if the next meeting isn't until June 26th. We don't want to drag this out. If we are ready before then, I don't want to drag it out.
Okay.
My commitment that if we can release it, if we're ready to do it, and we can call it a quick special meeting with one item to release privilege, then we'll do so.
Thank you. Appreciate all your time on that.
No, thank you. And I appreciate all your time. And I will say, there has been 22 years of discussions about what to do with that building, and so I don't want to spend 22 more debating it. And there have been well-intentioned and really good, and I'm not just saying it because a bunch of you in the room, folks who have worked on this committee presently and in the past, and we want to be respectful of the work that you've done and do our part as quickly as we can. But this report was really, really critical to making sure we do what we do and do it right so that we're not subject to litigation at a later point.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
That's
And thank you for your patience. Cool. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns about Memorial School reuse? Okay. Mass Housing 40B application for 13 Neck Road. We have to, at the last meeting, I mentioned to the board, if you had particular comments that you wanted to go with the town's submission to the state, you should get them back to me. I haven't received anything from either one of you, unless I missed it yet. We have until tonight. So
I gave my comments as part of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. So those comments are in. And you're not required to. I am going to submit some very basic comments at the top line.
So I thought we would sort of discuss them here and decide and so vote whether as a committee.
We can, but I don't have anything to discuss because he submitted his through the Affordable, which is perfectly appropriate as the board representative to Affordable Housing. If you have comments or thoughts, the request was that you submit them and then we could discuss them, but there's nothing to discuss.
Okay, so I apologize, I misunderstood. I thought we were going to collect them all from the public.
So that's a different thing. So the public's piece is here, ours goes on top of that and then gets submitted.
Right. So in the past, 40Bs that I've seen, the board takes subposition, yay, nay, and this is why, and we talk about it.
I just want to point out, at our last meeting though, we said.
Okay, and I said it.
Okay, right.
I said, you know, I misunderstood, and because of open meeting law, I thought we'd just, you know, talk about them a little bit here, but I should have sent them.
Right, so I just want to clarify, just for those folks listening, that like, the request was made from me to both of you. If you wanted to submit comments, send them to me in advance. Then we can discuss them at the meeting.
Okay.
It wasn't, at no point during the discussion did either one of you say, you know what, I'd rather just bring my thoughts to the meeting.
Okay, so I should have sent them to you then in advance.
We still have time.
Because the letter is due on the 8th, correct?
So our deadline for stuff to come with the town's response is tonight. And then if people want to submit to the state directly, it is the 7th, I believe.
So one thing that I did send, if that's all right, is I had sent a question out because in the applicants to you and to Kate, this was, I could pull it up, but it
I don't have anything.
The question that I had sent, and I'll look at the was, hold on a sec. It was that the applicant, here it is. It went to Jasmine and Stephen, so it said,
So not me?
No.
Okay.
Stephen, is that, what date is that?
Steve Kerrigan at Lancaster, MA, May 25th.
That's Kerrigan at Lancaster, MA.gov is our email now, but it should still go through.
Well,
May 25th, you said?
Yep, May 25th, 8:31 a.m.
Okay. And what's the question?
It said, I read the 40B comprehensive permit submission. I noticed the developer checked the box that he had a letter from the chief elected officials, us, on page 30 of his application. I assume this is a mistake. If so, we need to correct it. I think we need to send a letter to DHCD to correct this.
I don't think I received that.
You wouldn't.
But I don't see, what's the question?
The question was, did he send a letter? Did we correct this, or did he? Doesn't have a letter from us, I'm assuming.
The developer. I'm assuming that's what you said.
Yeah, the developer has, on page 30 of his submission, has a letter.
He has one. I didn't see the question because it didn't get sent to me. Right. It would have been helpful because you sent it to Jasmine and she wouldn't have known.
Yes. Okay.
Also to point out, there's no question there.
Well, I noticed that the developer, okay, so I noticed.
So I read it as if, since it was sent to Jasmine, that she was going to address any paperwork concern, but there is one letter.
To correct this publicly.
Yeah. We don't have to correct it because apparently he has one.
What does he have from?
It was a letter that was signed by the select board when it was Stan Starr and because he's had this particular plan, I guess, in place in different iterations for many, many years. So
Yes.
that's the one he's referring to. Whether or not the board finds that acceptable or not is a different matter. But as far as what is concerned, when he did a preliminary report or preliminary design and received permission to move forward with that, he got the then select board's signature. It was my 2 predecessors ago.
This is a
Mr.
revised
Pacheco.
design.
So that was the, he had proposed 8 units on the, at that time, on that letter, and
Sure.
and that board and select board and everything, a different TA, had sent a letter saying that they supported it or didn't support it. I didn't see the letter, so I don't know.
I believe they said that they were supportive of it. I think. I don't know. I wasn't here.
Can we get a copy of that?
Wouldn't it be included in his submission?
Yeah, it's in the submission, which we all have a copy.
I didn't see it in there, so I could have missed it.
Yeah, we all have a copy of it.
I mean, it's a couple hundred pages. It's got to.
I know, so I must have missed it, because
Yeah.
it was checked off, but I went through, it's a long submission. So, put it this way, since we know about it, may I get a,
It's in the, you already have it. She sent the submission,
Okay.
it's in your email. You've received the submission
I
for the
can
40B.
find them.
all right.
Find the
Okay.
page.
If I can't find it again, still.
No,
ask
it's
again.
got to be there because Jasmine
I'm
showed
sure-
me it
I'm
in
sure-
the packet.
Okay,
and
I'm
we have 'em-
sure it is there. I'm sure it is.
So the idea behind that, my understanding is that an applicant does not need to get, unless we have a change in our regulations and our bylaws, does not need to get every select board or planning board's letter if and when membership changes. But there may be something where you want to say after a certain period of time. Maybe it's not membership as much as time.
Well, it wasn't time, so that was.
Like 2 years old now, the
Yeah.
letter.
I mean, this, to be honest with you, this proposal is to me, is a much more attractive proposal than the previous one that was 8. But it is, still, of course, has issues. But it's a much different proposal. So, I'm surprised that just because it's the same parcel of land and the whole thing.
Well, it's the same, I think the issue is it's the same application with just a revised design, which makes it the same proposal.
You know, much different units,
I
different designs.
hear you saying, I'm
different
just saying
footprints.
why it meets the letter of the law.
Right.
Is it's the change in design.
Okay.
But I totally hear what you're saying, and it seems reasonable, but we then have to set a policy of, after a certain point, when do we negate a previous board's activity? Which I don't think we're gonna solve
So,
this evening, but.
the letter, I did go to the site walk and watched and listened. And there was a lot of concerns. Some seemed very, I understand, which legitimate, some weren't. And by legitimate, I mean everybody's concerns are legitimate. However, in 40Bs, there's only, as serving as the town's representative for 40B in the past, when we built a LIP, which was very successful, and attending MMA and housing workshops and being fairly knowledgeable about this, the only things that 40B that is within our purview is the environmental, public health, and public safety.
Yes.
So while I think that this design is much more attractive than the previous design, that really doesn't have bearing on this. However, I learned at the site walk, I had seen the plans,
Excuse me.
that the buildings go directly to the sidewalk right down Center Bridge Road on the corner. And there was a lot of concerns voiced about the safety of the intersection and the sight lines, which I think is a real safety concern. So I would ask that the board consider that in their comments. And I could have sent that
So I would go back,
earlier.
and so I'm gonna need you to do that, because, so I've got comments that I've written up that I have to clean up before getting to Kate. If you have comments, I would ask that you write them up, as I asked at the previous meeting. Jason sent his in. If you have comments like that, which I think are totally appropriate, I just ask that you get them to myself this evening, and so I can get them to Kate, or myself and Kate this evening, so we can include them with the town submission.
And then the process will be, how do we approve the cover letter that goes with this, with all the letters that we, the information that we consolidate?
My understanding is it would be a standard letter that would then have, if you submit comments, my comments, your comments, and then the townspeople's comments at large.
Okay.
Tell me if I'm
and do we take,
inaccurate.
That's how we did it for.
So do we take a supportive or a not supportive? It doesn't.
I'm not telling you how to.
No,
I
but
don't
as a
believe
board,
this board isn't.
That's usually what it's.
Well, that's not what we
we're
did.
asked to do.
Yeah. So this is, if you have comments, which seems as if you do.
I do.
If you had submitted them in advance, then we can submit them with.
And I will. I'm writing it right now. And the question is, once we consolidate your comments, I haven't seen your comments either, there's typically a time, and I know we have a short window.
Which we knew when we last discussed this and asked
Yes,
for folks
but
to
let's
submit
okay, so let's
comments.
assume I have no comments. Let's just assume
Okay.
that. What your comments that you've written, I haven't seen that as a board member, but the three of us, and I actually, Affordable Housing Trust, I need to see those. I'm assuming that those are listed on the site. Can we agree to one position to send in as a cover letter to DHCD?
Are you moving that the board endorse or oppose the project? Is that what you're suggesting?
You could do that in that grid, or yes, or talk about,
We have to, so if you're suggesting we take a position,
yes.
we would need to do that sooner rather than later. And
Yes.
I frankly it was on the agenda as next steps, not other than board official response. It was my intent to send in my thoughts on the project, but if you're proposing that the board take an official position, that would have been good to know prior to this meeting.
And I misunderstood, that's what I thought this was going to do today. May I, through the chair, ask our liaison, Jason, did the Affordable Housing Trust take a position one way or the other, and what the comments that were offered?
The Affordable Housing Trust, as part of our last meeting, approved the chairperson, Victoria Petrarca, to create a letter and have that to be as part of our comments.
And what was the meat of the letter? What was the
There was
gist of
it was basically talking about the pros and cons. There was not a formal endorsement or not endorsement.
And my comments don't intend to have a formal endorsement or non-endorsement, just an understanding that there are way too many concerns about this project as designed, and that we need to take a long, hard look at it, and not take a position one way or the other on. But it's, the design's better, but just because it's a better design doesn't necessarily make it better. It's a better design with more units. It's a better design with more units, which means more cars. My concern is it's raised a lot of questions. I am not morally opposed to it, but I'm just saying I think the townspeople, which is why my comments will be with the vast majority of the town's comments, saying that there's a lot more that needs to be done here to make us happy to have this in the town.
So typically, the letter from the chief executive and other ones, my understanding, was they wanted to get the sense from the town, and we've sent them in on capital groups and Goodrich and that kind of thing, was for the...
I feel like you asked us and answered it, and we've answered
No,
this.
I understand that, but was to explain the town's position. I'll have to look at the previous one, so it sounds like it was favorable.
I'm looking at the one that I wrote for you all, which was on 4/26.
Yep.
Incidentally, my second day
Yes.
at the job, but there was no position taken. It basically outlined a variety of concerns.
And this is for the North Lancaster
That was
project,
for the
yes.
40B
Yes,
North Lancaster.
I remember that.
Variety.
I remember that one, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, because you just
You just said the
no, I
typically
said
named.
it.
typically, but this last one, at least since I've been here, it just says, here are the things that we'd like to see to be able to basically jump up and down and champion this. We do champion the idea of affordable housing. We would like to get there. Here are the things that we're hearing from the community. Here are the things that we're hearing from the boards and executives and the departments. And here is the overall concerns of the select board. And acting by and through the people. And then we attached all of the comments from the community as the appendix to that. So that was the road I think we were planning to take.
See, I read that one, the 426 one, which was very comprehensive, as essentially favorable, but
there was no vote in favor or opposition.
Right.
So I mean, and I will say I much preferred the 40R up there, not the 40B up there. So I
think everybody does. Yeah. So, okay.
I actually don't think it's really all that favorable.
No, it's not. Yeah. Okay.
I guess.
Any further questions about? So if you have comments that you would like submitted with the town's comments, please submit them. This goes to anybody by the end of tonight. Sooner rather than better. Sooner rather than later, rather. If you would like to submit them, though, to the Commonwealth directly, you have until the end of the day on June the 7th, which is Wednesday.
So
yes. I'm just clarifying something. Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Turner, would you like to be recognized?
Thank you. I didn't send my comments as a private citizen because I thought the board was going to send one, so I sent them. So that was my thought, was sending them.
I'm confused. Did you send comments as a private?
I have sent no comments to anybody because I was expecting that I would act in this role as the chief executive and not as a private citizen.
I just have to point out, and this is just for sake of clarity, so that we, again, since I tried to dispel things so there's no confusion.
Yep.
At the last meeting, sitting here as I am right now, and as you are right now, we discussed our process, which was if either one of you had comments you wanted submitted with the town's comments, you would submit them to myself and Kate before the meeting, today's meeting.
Yes.
It wasn't if you had comments or a entirely different approach, we would take, that would have been the time to discuss the entirely different approach. So I just want to be very clear that if you had comments you wanted to submit as a private citizen, there was nothing about our plan that precluded that.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I assumed we were going to have a dialogue about support or not tonight. That's fine.
Okay. And this is
That's fine.
And this is just what is frustrating because it was very clear at the last meeting what the process was, and we get to this point, and now you say you assumed it was going to be different. There's plenty of time to ask so that assumptions don't hang out there and lead us down the wrong path. But I think we've spent enough time on this already. Any further questions from members of the board? Okay. We will get our comments out to the Commonwealth.
Sorry, clarifying question?
Yes.
In the past, the board had voted for me to compile a memo from the board.
I thought we had done that at the last meeting. We didn't do that at the last meeting?
No, we were waiting for this one.
All right.
So that would
motion.
be... Yeah.
Is there a motion?
To do the actual compilation?
To compile it and put the cover.
Just a cover.
Yeah.
So I move to authorize Town Administrator Kate Hodges to compile a cover letter for the 13 Neck Road 40B application.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Your pen confused me.
300. 300. Thank you. All right. Next item up for bid, certification and approval to remove invasive plants from town land per Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act relative to Thayer Field.
Yes. So this is for a volunteer, a very kind volunteer, who happens to be sitting in the audience, to remove invasive species. The extra step is needed because it's technically on town property. It's gone through the Conservation Commission. There seems to have been a misunderstanding just hearing Mr. Seidenberg. It's not going through the wetlands. That's a completely different fund. But in last year's town meeting, $20,000 was allocated for work in and around conservation properties. It was a whole variety. It was actually a very broad article. And a lot of it had been spent on tree removal, remediation of some beaver damage, and so there's some money left over from that. In addition, we allocated an additional $10,000 of ARPA funds for the same purpose, for trail maintenance, conservation maintenance, and anything else like that. So that is well within the purview of use. So that is the money that we are using. Yes, it is conservation money, but it's via the general fund articles and not the wetlands. So I hope that clears that up. And so the board needs to vote to approve that, and if you can vote that, I will sign on your behalf on the application.
I have 3 questions. 2 of them are serious. One of them is if you can extend the eradication to my yard and see if we can get some of the invasive things out, because that would be fantastic. I'm sure we can come at this later.
No is the answer to that.
Fine,
Thank
good.
you, no.
Just to dispel any future rumors about that will go all over town like an invasive plant. That was a joke. Insurance. I'm assuming through this process, volunteers can often be covered by our insurance, just in case, God forbid, something were to happen. I would want to make sure that we are covered.
Yes, so when it's sanctioned by the board and we have somebody that's volunteering doing it, yes, they would be covered by our volunteer insurance. Now, that's only supplemental to the volunteer's personal insurance, so
exactly, yes.
If there was something over and above, we would take that up.
Okay, and then my second question, which is really just curiosity, where does it go? Where do you dispose of it? Sure, sure. It's just more of a curiosity.
He's going to replant it in your backyard.
Yeah, anywhere on Neck Road, please don't. I know what I do with invasive plants. I dig them up, and it's a banana cakes routine of having them dry out, and it's a whole crazy thing.
So most of the invasive species are actually small bushes and shrubs.
Yeah.
And those would be piled up on their field and brush piles, which are conducive to habitat, as well as keeping most of the carbon on site.
So you take them, they dry out, they just become brush piles, and that's it.
Right.
We need to have a long meeting about bamboo in my backyard and how we get rid of it.
So the Japanese bamboo is different. That is.
Oh, it stinks.
It's a joke, whoever that is.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Thank you so much for your
engagement. So the Japanese bamboo is the only species that we are requiring the herbicide for.
Oh,
so that's what the main thing for the herbicide is, to kill the bamboo, and then it can be lawn mowed and kept on site as well.
Got it. That was relevant. I just want to be very clear. It's also knowledge.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. I muted. It looks like there's maybe some accidental conversation. I just muted everybody.
That's fine.
We'll need to authorize them to.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your willingness to do this too. We appreciate it. I shudder to think what it would cost the town to take care of it. So thank you. Are there any further comments, discussions, or is there a motion?
I have questions.
Okay.
Okay. So I think maybe part of the concern, thank you for the clarifications, Kate, on the funding. The cover letter in our packet from Charlotte Steves, our conservation agent, says, reads, the Conservation Commission requests town involvement with a proposed invasive species eradication plan along the borders of Fairfield. The plan involves spraying and mechanical cutting of several invasive plants growing on land and managed by the town of Lancaster. The project shall be funded by the Conservation Wetland Fund, gives an account number, which I guess is that fund that you talked about that we established at town meeting. And we request that a representative of the town sign off on the project to be present during any public hearings held by the commission regarding this project. And then there's a really detailed package, which is great. And it talks about using glyphosate, aka Roundup, and a big list of, I guess that's what you're talking about for the Japanese knotweed.
So that project has been ongoing. He just needs a signature on the other part. The rest has already gone through public hearing, actually 2. Okay. They already sprayed and did that work. That was for herbicide work over by the playground.
Yeah, there's a big focal point here.
Right.
So there's there's no more spraying?
There's no more spraying right now. It's a multi-year process. So.
Okay. I'm confused.
Will be some more spraying because the first application, we couldn't get to it all physically, it was so large.
But it's in essence part of that first application, just part 2 of it.
But not what he needs the signature on.
Right, not what he needs
There's
the
two
signature on.
separate things, even though the whole application you have, it covers the whole parcel.
Right.
And then there is a big list of black locusts, 38 trees. Some of them sound really big and some of them sound not really big, because measured in the diameter, the caliper, at the caliper. Are you going in there and cutting those down, or is that a town thing, or what is, because it sounds like Roundup is relatively inexpensive. We're talking a couple $100, right?
So the Roundup application requires a licensed herbicide applicator.
Yes.
So that is the only expense that we're aware of right now. And I got an estimate for $300 for one more spraying, and I need to get, if approved, then I would need to get a quote.
Okay.
But I'm assuming that another spraying will be about $300.
Makes sense.
The list of black locusts, you see most of them, or a lot of them are less than 10 inches, so they're tiny, they're kind of small trees. And I would have another volunteer for the larger trees, who is Steve Zadroga. He used to work for the Federal Game and Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife, and he used to teach chainsaw classes. So he's an expert.
And the ones that are under 10 or 12 inches, they can be just wood chipped, right?
So they could be used as firewood, and
DPW said that they would take trees, is that right?
Their practice is to, anytime they cut down a tree on town property, their practice is to deposit it on the nearest resident that will take them. DPW does not want to get a payloader out.
I saw a note.
And it's more expense,
Yeah.
so.
I just saw a note that it said that informs me that the practice is for trees cut down to dispose of the trees with the nearest resident, right?
Right.
Got it.
So that would be Kate Comiskey, she's in a butter, and I don't have a truck, so it's convenient.
Yeah.
Surrounds my property. So
Perfect.
I'll take some of it.
There you go. Thank you so much. And then this is a community coming together for a cleanup. Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So is there a motion to?
So this is just.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Do you have any further comments?
I do have questions, yeah.
Okay.
So we're just looking at a minimum amount of money, $300. The logging is just done by volunteers?
Correct.
And there's some, okay.
No, you're not doing the 300.
We're not doing that part at all.
That's not part of this.
Okay.
I just gave you the whole comprehensive permit because to just pick out, all you're doing is giving approval
For this
this
piece.
portion. The rest we handle all in-house.
For the non-weed,
For this portion. Yep.
I just didn't know, I was confused.
$0.
Packet.
That's because if I only gave you one,
I
it
know, no,
wouldn't
it's
be
good,
enough.
it's better to have, it is better to have it all. I just was trying to sort out what was what. So, I'm sorry, Kate, because you know what it is, could you just recap, what is this portion? It's just the Japanese knotweed?
Right, that's all you need to approve because it's right on the town's property. The rest of it is covered under another permit that is actually that one through Conscom.
Right, and we're not spending.
We're not spending any of that money.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to authorize the volunteer removal of the invasive species at their field by volunteer resident.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Discussion.
Oh, discussion. Sorry, you're right.
Thank you. Thank you for playing a positive role and working hard to make Lancaster better. I hope that many more residents like yourself will step up, and I'm grateful that this board is moving this through quickly. Thank you.
I echo the thanks.
Good
Any
luck.
further
That's
discussion?
awful.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes, no noes. Next, believe it or not, budget calendar for FY 2025. discussion and acceptance.
You were far more excited than the department
very
heads when I rolled this out last week.
Super excited for budget stuff.
Feel like they just got through the last one.
We're not even through the fiscal year and we're already on to the next one.
True. So there was
we have
a
the-
calendar
Yep.
that is a draft that was in your packet. It may look familiar.
It does. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it does look familiar. It starts with, well, today.
That's right.
How exciting.
And everyone was so excited.
I bet they were, with the capital improvement program and instructions issued. And then it takes us all the way through May 6th, 2024. Mark your calendars for our annual town meeting. I think this is very comprehensive. My one thing is so remember we did the meeting in this room in November. Is that what the revisions of budget meetings reviews? Is that the November 23?
That's correct.
That's
and
the vision
I figured we needed to check, so Cheryl will also be bringing this to the finance committee.
Okay, great.
So that we can get their availability
Awesome.
as well.
Great.
So. But if there are November dates that absolutely do not work for
That's
this board, and you could let me know, that would help to.
In November.
Correct.
Yes,
That would be
okay.
helpful to bring to the finance committee so that we can say, this date absolutely does not work.
So can you give us a deadline by which time you'd like blackout dates in November?
Yeah, I think I would need it, we'd like to bring it to them in August, so if you could get it to me by August.
Okay. So
July 31st.
July 31st. So can my colleagues commit to getting dates in November that you cannot, at least, I mean, things change.
Saturdays.
Saturdays.
So there's
Saturdays
only 4.
in November, there are only 4, that you cannot make a joint meeting with the finance committee, this board, the town administrator, and the finance director. So just by July 31st, if you can submit any that you cannot. So basically blackout dates. So that,
Thanksgiving.
that's a Thursday.
Thanksgiving weekend.
But I would still love you to just shoot it in a quick email so we have it. That'd be great. You can do it now if you want. But okay.
Then you will be the first to respond.
You're so ahead of things. What an overachiever you are. Okay. Any other? We need a motion to accept this budget calendar for FY25. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those. Oh, you do. Okay. I can't see you. Sorry.
Thank you, Keith.
Clearly gotta look. Please.
Sorry, I was looking and you were looking down at a paper. I was so just read. I think those allergies are contagious.
I did.
So
just everywhere.
super grateful to putting together this schedule. I hope every resident takes a look at it and understands the flow of this 365 days of a year process, and everybody can play a positive role in participating in the budget process. So thank you for putting this together.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Hearing. Okay. Any further discussion?
One of the things that I found to be helpful in the past with budget, and I think we can probably do it, I was just looking at the data when it would help you, Kate, is so oftentimes a budget is as we all know, a budget is a statement of policy. And typically our board and the finance committee would give department heads a directive of sort of what our financial forecast was and give some sort of indication of whether we wanted level services, level funding, if we wanted cuts, if we wanted additions. So when they built the budget, they could build one or more budgets if they have to do it. When would be if the board agrees that that is still a good practice, when should we get that to you? When should we have that discussion?
I like last year's process.
We didn't do that last
Yeah.
year.
I know we didn't, but it has been in the past, and it's a really good,
I love last year's process. I thought it was awesome. I would like to keep doing that.
Yep. But it is,
Do you have a suggestion when you would want to make your voice heard on that?
well, I think that we should try to get that word out to people and have a discussion ourselves and a touch base as soon as possible, because it looks like general fund requests are due September 13th.
Yeah.
So we would probably, general fund budget instructions go out in August 2nd, so I would think that we would have to have it just prior to that.
So you think 1 month into a fiscal year, we're going to be able to tell the town departments whether we want to have them cut for the next fiscal year?
It's not a matter of cutting, but they need to have some sort of a goal so we can go, yeah, there's a lot of financial forecasting that can be told. We'll understand where the state's going as far as aid. We'll have a little bit better handle on things like the school. It is early, and I think it's subject to revision, so maybe we'll say to people at this point, we want, we're preparing for level services, for example. Could you prepare that? Or you could say, so this is not an unusual process, as you know. And we've done
I know. I
this in the
guess I'm
past.
just trying to identify where you'd like to change the process and in what manner.
It's not a change,
Change from
really.
what we did last year.
It's not really a change. I would say that it's just it's more detailed supplement, so that we would say, I don't want people to have to. Don't want people to have to just shoot in the dark. So when Kate gives people the general fund budget instructions, I'm assuming that those go with, I'm sure you're saying to them, please prepare a level fund or a level services budget. Am I right? Or 10% up or 10% down or whatever.
I mean,
May I ask
Yeah,
what
sorry.
problem we're trying to solve?
Yeah, you got there before I did, but, so what, I guess the question is, so first of all, we empower Kate to work with department heads to develop a budget to present to us. How she develops it and works with the people who work for her is not my day-to-day concern. If there becomes a problem with it, then we deal with it, but I guess my question is, what are you trying to solve for,
Well, for example,
that you think is at risk of not being addressed?
This last year, we've learned, we had a much more comprehensive project than the year before. And we talked about, I think everybody was told to do a level services budget, is my understanding, from what
They did too.
Okay. And so that gave them some direction. We need to be able to give Kate that kind of input.
Do you feel like you don't have input from us on how to run this budget process, other than approving this calendar?
No,
Go ahead.
my
That's your
historical way of doing it would be, we sit at a staff meeting and we develop a level service and a level funded. And then Cheryl and I take those are two separate Excel sheets, and somewhere in the middle it meets. And the first pass is essentially what you all get at the preview meeting in November, and then it gets whittled from there. So the
Right.
time for that input, I would think, would be, unless the board only wants us to prepare
No.
level service or level funded rather, because level service is a little easier to prepare than level funded. That would essentially be a cut to departments, which would be difficult a month in.
I mean, yeah.
You know?
I mean, I feel like the process we went through last year and the process you and Cheryl went through to calculate for the override sort of set us on a path to know roughly where we're going to be for the next several fiscal years. At least that's what we pitched to the town when they voted for the override.
Through five. It takes us through 5 fiscal
So we
years, so
have
this
some-
is year 2.
Yeah, so we have a good baseline sense of where we are.
Year 2 was not level funded. Year 2 is a modified level service.
Is the baseline you're
Is the
working on.
baseline, and that's why we've chosen to stagger the union contracts, so that I have a better way to forecast that. They're not done. So
Right. Okay.
it's hard to make a determination. I mean, maybe it'll be better by August, but I don't know. I'm not, we have 3 union contracts still outstanding, which we'll talk about in executive
I mean,
session later.
my guess would be we'll get a ton more information by November, which still puts us 6 straight months before an annual town meeting. Then we'll discuss it as we did last year, at the November meeting in this very room.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you if you want to change the process, for sure. The only process I know is this one.
No, it's
Lots of
process.
communities do it differently.
No.
So I was just bringing you
Yeah, no, it's not, if it's not meant to be a change, it's meant to be a supplement. I know Department of Revenue talked to us a lot about trying to get the directions, as you have, out early, and that we would lead in that, and a touch base, and we'll have the benefit by then of the actuals. But it's, the willingness of the board, that's fine.
But do you have something you're proposing? Because I'm still waiting
You
to hear.
asked, I just said that.
I know, but I'm wondering.
So you said, give me a date or a time, and looking at the calendar, which I agree with you, August is a bit early, but it's a beginning, and that this is a living document, so as forecasting gets a little bit better, but I thought that we should have a discussion about projections and actuals, probably in August, based on Kate's calendar. So we respect her calendar.
I believe Kate already has projections
That's fine.
for the next 4 fiscal years for what we're going to do. I'm in awe of how fantastic the budget process worked last year. I am grateful for the professionalism with which it was handled then and now. I have spoken to department heads who are grateful, even though they're not used to, they weren't used to having to deal with budget stuff. This, before the fiscal year for the previous one even ended, they're grateful to have the opportunity to dig in and have this this information as early as possible, make their case, and work with the town administrator and the finance director. And so I am of the opinion that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this process works.
That we all agree on.
This process works well and has proven to do so. So if there's any further discussion?
No, I think that's something that we agree on, that the process was much improved in the previous couple of years, and that and I thank Kate for bringing that to there. I do think that it is our job also to discuss forecasting and the budget, and to look at, for example, some budgets may still be underfunded, some may be overfunded, whatever, that we need to look at sort of with Kate to help her job about what our goals are for the budget and how to do it. But we can.
I do think that might be at the finance committee level, which is sort of where I got that last year. Not necessarily here, unless I'm not reading
I'm
that
that old dog, so used to do it. So okay.
All right.
Motion on the...
Yeah, there's a motion on the table that has been seconded. Any further discussion? All's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. Next item on the agenda is to review the request from John Farnsworth to waive the public hearing requirement for the renewal of the Canis special permit for the removal of earth products expiring 8/19/23.
He is here.
Yeah, I'm looking for him. I had to...
He's up.
There he's right in the corner.
Everybody.
Oh, you got a pop.
There's John.
I should be able to unmute now.
There you go, John.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for taking the time. I'm here tonight representing my neighbor, John Canis. His earth products permit will expire in August. I think I've been coming with him now probably for almost 30 years. He has a small operation compared to the other EPRs in town. I took the liberty of sending you over a plan which really shows the excavations for the last 8 years. And if you look sort of up towards the top of the plan, there's a square there with purple lines. That shows where the existing face of the pit is right now. And that box is what was permitted in 2021. So they barely chewed through a third of the what had been allocated there. Now, we don't need to get into the weeds here, but in the earth product bylaw, it states that a permit may be renewed without a public hearing by a majority vote of the selectmen. And I'd also throw out there that I don't believe the Canuses have had a violation or a complaint on their permit in the time that they've been operating there. And I think that waiving the hearing, there are 9 abutting parcels. The only real abutters are the Fish and Wildlife and the Board of, you folks, with the DPW use that's adjacent to John's piece here. And I think what I'd suggest is that we come back again on a Zoom meeting at your convenience. We're waiting for a revenue cert, the abutters certification, and we're going to record the current groundwater readings that I'll annotate onto the drawing, and then that'll be completed.
Okay.
Are there any questions I can answer?
Thank you, John. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Farnsworth?
I'm familiar with the permit, so not for Mr. Farnsworth, but for, through the chair.
Yes, do you have any questions?
The question is, are you looking for, or I should say, are we entertaining the motion to waive the upcoming hearing for the 23rd, as printed here, due in August for going forward?
That's what it
Because if
says.
not, we have to call it, and that's a longer process. So you're not opining on the permit at all.
We're
It's
just
if you're
waiving
waiving
the
it.
public hearing.
If not, then there's a process, obviously, for the public hearing with 14 days notifying the abutters, et cetera, so.
Okay. So our other option would,
Be to not waive the public hearing.
well, yes. So I will say for the record, and I think I've said this in many times, that I believe that this is the cleanest, best run, best managed, thanks in part to John and the Canuses, permit that we have. May all earth removal be done this well, and I wish they were. The reason that we have public hearings are to allow for feedback, and I think that this waiving public hearings, especially for something as serious as earth removal, would set a bad precedent. So I'm personally not in favor of it, but I would expect to support the permit when it comes forward.
All right. In general, I agree that we shouldn't waive public hearings we can't waive public hearings for new ones, but for renewals of special permits that have been in existence, as long as this one has, and with a clean bill of work behind it, I have no problem moving to, or entertaining a motion to waive the public hearing requirement for the renewal of the Canis special permit.
I move to grant the request of J. Farnsworth to waive the public requirement of the renewal of Canis special
Public hearing
permit.
requirement.
Public hearing requirement for the renewal of Canis special permit for the removal of earth products, which is set to expire August 19th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the matter? Yes.
So Kate, is there any reason that we should not grant this request?
It's a policy decision.
I mean, is there any paper, is there any complaint, is there anything that we have on file? Is there any reason, have you received any correspondence from anybody up until this point?
No, only Mr. Farnsworth.
Yeah, it's been my understanding that all of this has been on the up and up, and in my opinion, Mr. Farnsworth is an upstanding citizen. If he's willing to put his name on this, then I'm willing to support him.
Agreed. Any further discussion on the motion?
No, I would just thank John and the Canuses for running a wonderful operation. But I don't want to set the precedent. So for that reason, not personally, I will vote against it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
2-1-0. Your request to waive the public hearing requirement for the renewal of the Canis permit is approved. Thank you, John, and thank the Canuses.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
You too. Be well. Next up is Tax Fairness Committee Matters, Charge Clarity Committee Guidelines Expectations.
Yeah, so the charge clarity is just that I had a couple of residents reach out, which is great. Some in response to the select board discussion and others in response to our call for volunteers. One of the things that has been, I wouldn't say a consistent theme, but a couple of people had asked is whether the Tax Fairness Committee is going to oversee the assessors. And I think that, I don't know how that happened, that someone would interpret it that way, but that is not in the charge of this, no. Nor is it appropriate. The assessments and how the assessments get done is highly regulated by the state. There's several mathematical formulas. It's very technical. If, as part of tax fairness, understanding that process and developing a mechanism to help people understand that is something that comes from that as an initiative, that could be something that town staff would spearhead, sort of understanding your assessment, and I think that that's a really good idea. But the oversight of the assessors does not come from this committee. This would be a variety of other things. So I just wanted to be clear because I think I want people to know what they're signing up for, quote unquote, but also, if they felt like that's what it was and they weren't equipped to do that, know that isn't part of this charge. And then Mr. Allison had asked for sort of some rules of engagement type of things, and so I put a draft together that was meant to be brief, but hopefully for folks to understand.
It's one page, which meets all the right guidelines, which is good.
And I'm not often good for a one-pager, so.
No comment.
She can be taught.
Neither am I. Yeah, no, I appreciate the guidelines. I appreciate also your clarification for folks on the assessors. At this point, are we voting on the operating guidelines, or are these be presented to members when appointed?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I would say if I looked at this, I would think that this is sort of an extension of policy.
Agreed.
And since you all are the appointing authority, it might be good to have them, but there's no rush to do it because we don't have anybody, and they're not due until the next meeting, so if you want to take some time to...
So this is one thing that I did read.
Thank you.
Yeah, in great detail. And I'm a big believer in being clear to someone when you appoint them to something or ask them to join a committee or a board of any kind, that you're very clear about what the charge is and what their roles are. I think this lays that out perfectly. I would be in favor of us voting to bless these operating guidelines for the Tax Fairness Committee, if only to give citizens who are considering applying to join the Tax Fairness Committee that some sense of what their responsibilities would be and what they'd be asking to do. The one thing that this is, also to be clear, is that this is in essence an ad hoc committee that when the purpose of the committee is done, it dissolves, which is why people will not see an end date to appointments.
Right.
And the purpose, of course, is stated in the purpose at the very top of this committee, and I thank those who supported this at the town meeting. And so I would ask my colleagues if they have any questions. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve these operating guidelines for the Tax Fairness Committee. Any questions? Jason has his hand up.
So I have some lessons learned from the Government Study Committee. I would almost be inclined to see something that says the Select Board reserves the right to unappoint.
Well, there are some.
No, all that unless I missed it, all that it said is if somebody misses 3 without notifying the chair.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of on us for appointing them in the first place.
I don't know if it's, well, stuff happens. Life happens, and it's not fair of me to say I'm more motivated for this than the Government Study Committee. That may not be the right thing to say, but I'm more motivated to get this going. So I don't know, Kate, if it's even legal to say something like that. The Select Board reserves the right to unappoint somebody from the committee for any reason.
Ooh, that's a tough one, for
Yeah.
any reason.
Yeah.
Probably not. I
Probably
would think
not.
that would be challenged.
Okay.
I think that there is a code of conduct. So if there is a member who is, the code of conduct is an interesting one. It was brought up quite a bit when I first started. But what I'm saying is, if somebody is acting not in good faith, then you could probably remove for that instead of for any reason, because it could be like, what if you hate the color purple and they wear purple? You wouldn't do that, but when you read it, you could say, well, could it be arbitrary and capricious? So it would be sort of like, if you're not, there could be something in there like, if it is deemed that you're not acting in the best interest of the mission or the goals.
Anyway, that's my feedback. Is I would like to help. I want to play a proactive role in making progress here.
And I hear you on the. I think if you've got if there's a way to square the circle on appointments and unappointing.
Square the circle?
No.
You said that out loud.
No. It's to solve a problem. It's a square circle.
So maybe
it's a phrase. Anyway, if there's a way to do that relative to appointments or de-appointing, as you wish, that's a larger conversation. It's not just relative to the Tax Fairness Committee.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Is maybe it should be something that's
it would be
all
overarching
appointees
policy matter.
of the board.
Are you Googling square the circle? It's a thing.
So I could come back with, I mean, I can't promise by next meeting, but I can come back with some language, because I know that Mass Municipal has just been talking about this with other towns. It's becoming more and more necessary for boards to de-appoint, mostly because of things that are happening outside of the meeting, but that are questionable.
Second question is, if we vote to approve these guidelines tonight, can we amend them in the future?
I can't imagine you could.
Cool, so then I'd be all motivated to move forward with what we got tonight, and whatever we find in the future, cool. But this is a great first start.
Fantastic. Comments, questions, concerns?
So first, I think that the guidelines are very helpful and good. I would like to, if we could, because the purpose reads for the guidelines, which I understand. I think that reflects it perfectly down below. I don't think it talks about the purpose of the committee, which is what maybe if we could insert the purpose from town meeting up on the top. So like the purpose, or this maybe purpose or operating guidelines on that top paragraph, and then the committee's charge up above someplace.
These are the operating guidelines.
Yeah, these are the operating guidelines. I hear what you're saying. We could drop the word operating guidelines down and just for an interest of information put charge of the committee. But that
right. So they had one summary page.
But that wouldn't change the approval of the operating guidelines, right?
The other thing is, I think that these would be helpful when we're appointing any committee, especially ad hoc committees. So I like them, and I think that they'd be helpful to give to other committees of future. And following up on what Jason said, was talking about, when I look to appoint a committee, personally, and I'm selecting people, I like to, I've said it before, I like to appoint a team of rivals. So I want people that disagree with one another. I like to have a wide constituency of people who disagree, so we come up with a better project. So I do believe that there are people, for example, if people are perennially tardy or don't attend, that is a bona fide reason to remove somebody, and that's stated here. But just because somebody is not endorsing my or the selectmen's or something vision, there may be a good reason for that. I would not want to unappoint somebody during their term unless it was real extreme. And right now, we have a recall for that, right? Because I think we need to have those diverse opinions. So I would not be in favor of that, adding that.
Which is, you've withdrawn that from
I've not made any amendments. Just ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions about the operating guidelines?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Tax Fairness Committee matters, committee guidelines, expectations, operational guidelines.
Is there a
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
I would like to amend them just to add, is it okay to add the, charge up into the
But that's
top?
not for the so the formatting, yes, she can add the charge, but we're approving the operating guidelines.
Okay, and I think they'd be helpful here, but
I agree with you on how we present stuff, we should have the charge, but
Okay.
we're just approving the operating guidelines.
So I offer the amendment and it won't get.
It's the back. No, like, the front will have the committee and the charge and whatever, and this is the back.
Right, we're just approving the operating guidelines.
Okay.
Okay, or not, because we haven't voted yet, so it's exciting. All right, all those in favor of approving the operating guidelines as moved, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, 300. Thank you all. Next, we have appointments to the Conservation Commission. We have Sean Windsor, who has applied for a term set to expire June the 30th, 2026.
Mr. Chair, may
Yes.
I just say, so I was hearing the now chair's
Of the Conservation Commission,
comments.
yes.
And generally speaking, at least since I've been here, we've received members because the former chair of Conservation Commission would bring them forward. So when he resigned, we put something asking for all kinds of open positions that we had.
Right.
And Mr. Windsor, I hadn't heard from anybody else, so I don't want it to be seen like we were surpassing somebody else that came forward. Mr. Windsor was the only person that came forward, and
It's the only person I've heard from as well.
he happens to be on the call if anybody wants to hear from him.
I just want, okay, yeah. I didn't see him. Oh, there he is. It's a large photo of him.
Mr. Chairman, I can speak if you'd like me to.
Thank you, Mr. Windsor. Take it away. We appreciate your willingness to serve on the Conservation Commission. Maybe give us a little thumbnail sketch of who you are and why you're so willing to join in the fun.
No, of course, and I did hear Mr. Soderberg's comments previous. I'd be happy to meet with them at any point. It's a goal to sort of just step forward when necessary to be part of a board, and obviously I would digress to your board to the most appropriate way to handle it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
How long has this position been open?
Since May 31st.
May 31st?
Yeah, that's when Tom's
Was
resignation.
effective.
4 days ago?
Was effective.
Effective, he gave
his notice a while before that.
like a month.
Yeah.
How long have we been advertising?
About a month.
About a month, yeah.
And we've had one application?
Well, actually, before town meeting, we had 3 openings, and we had advertised for that for about a year and not received any. So then, now the membership is lower, and so then this was the one vacated.
At town meeting, we changed.
As a town meeting, we changed from
Because we
7
didn't
to
have-
5, so there have been vacancies for more than a year.
Are there any other applications that you've received?
No, not that I have received.
Steve, have you received?
No, I have not received any, other than Sean's.
So on our town website, now I will say, like, what I thought worked really well is when we had the planning board, and kudos to Kate, we had the planning board search, and we put out with some very specific times and deadlines as far as the search goes. I thought that worked well, and then we let me just finish.
Yeah.
And we met together as 2 committees and voted for people. Now that's could I just?
You can, but I don't want us to go too far down that path.
No.
It's an entirely different process.
I understand that. And so that was appointing vacancies for an elected position. This is appointed to our board, if that's what you wanted to get. So this is different, but what I was saying is that I thought that worked really well. On our town website right now, we're looking for, it says we're looking for 2 vacancies, so for a 3-year term, although I thought that we were,
Do we sure how updated that is?
Okay.
And what's before us is this appointment.
I understand, but what I'm saying in general is just we're talking about process, so we also have things.
But I want to be clear, we're considering this appointment, not the process for filling it.
I understand. It seemed to spur some good conversation. For example, the EDC has 3 members open right now, so we do have to update this, obviously.
Again.
The Conservation Commission right now has 1 vacancy, am I right? Just 1?
That's correct.
Okay. Because we've just appointed Dennis Hubbard recently.
Before town meeting.
I think that was before town meeting.
Yeah, so he was the last appointee.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, that was just last month.
Yep.
Seems like a lifetime.
It does, doesn't it? So, okay.
It does.
So I want to, do you have any other questions about this appointment?
I think it's an opportune time just to learn, say, if we could put some deadlines and maybe the thing, it would be great, because I think that will help recruit. So when we're looking for more recruitments, I know there are people who are interested in all kinds of things. So maybe we could talk, put on an agenda, a future agenda, how better to recruit people. Not for this appointment, but just a general discussion in the future. Okay?
Yeah, I'm kind of offended by that, because I think we've done the best we can to recruit. We've been recruiting. We've sent out a long list of people to open positions. This is about, I just don't want to conflate things. This is about filling a position that was posted a month ago for the Conservation Commission. I don't think this is remotely controversial. 1 person has applied. He is here. This is a commission that we appoint.
Yes.
So so this is a commission that we appoint. The example you gave about planning board is total apples and oranges. They're an elected board. Our rules require us to meet jointly to appoint. Our rules require us to appoint a conservation commission. That is all we're doing. Yes.
I understand.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Sean Windsor, term to expire June 30th, 2026, to the Conservation Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Congratulations, Sean. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Next agenda item is Minuteman School Committee. That is a moderator appointment, yes?
Which, in looking back, was the moderator's recommendation back to the board, because if it's not made at town meeting, he's generally not.
So he made the recommendation back to us for Charlene Cabral for
Who's also on
for a term to expire June 30th, 2026. Charlene, how are you? Are you unmuted? You are. Hi.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm fine. How are y'all?
Good. And it's Charlene, not Carlene, right? I don't want to make sure I'm not.
Charlene.
Charlene. Okay, great. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the board before we consider your application?
You want to hear something? Otherwise, I've submitted my letter of interest to the moderator and gave my background experience. If you want to hear it, I'm happy to give you a summary.
It was in the packet.
It's in the packet. We've read it. I'm grateful, given your experience, your willingness to serve is admirable, and I'm thankful to the moderator for suggesting you to this board. Does the board have any questions?
To appoint Charlene Cabral, term to expire June 30th, 2026, to the Minuteman School Committee.
Term to expire June 30th. You already did that. Got it. Okay.
I think you're not appointing. I think you are ratifying.
We're ratifying them.
I would like a motion to ratify the moderator's appointment of Charlene Cabral, term to expire June 30th, 2026, to the Minuteman School Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion of the motion?
I'd like to thank Charlene. I've spoken with her, and I think her in-depth knowledge of vocational education, in particular, and education in general, serve us well. And Minuteman serves our community well. I would love to suggest that we have, once she gets her feet under her, have her come in and meet with us and talk a little bit about what's going on at Minuteman and opportunities for us.
Great. All right. All Thank you very much, Charlene. All those in favor of this ratification of the moderator's appointment signify so by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Make a motion to appoint Jasmine Farinacci to the Montechusett Regional Planning, as the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission representative.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion?
Yeah, I spoke with Mr. Streeter earlier today, and I think that there might have been, I don't know if we want to appoint 2 of them or not. In the past, it was held by the board.
It's
I think
not
he
on the
had.
agenda, so we have
I
to-
understand that, but I think that there was some discussion.
He's welcome, as chair of the planning board, he's welcome to raise it to me or to Kate. But I haven't heard from him. I haven't heard from him about that.
Okay.
We just have this appointment to.
In case there was confusion, in case there was any
There is.
confusion, can we change this appointment at a future meeting if need be?
Can change the appointment of her to be our representative? I suppose we could appoint somebody else to be our representative. I have not heard anything from Frank about this, so this is on our agenda.
Yes, I understand.
And there's been a motion that's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint current member Alexandra Turner to the discussion on Montechusett Joint Transportation Committee, MJTC, for the duration of 2023 to 2024 appointment.
Are you willing to serve?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is one that that I would like to talk to. I will happily accept this. When I didn't realize, and I apologize, I did not realize I had held this position. I thought this was I was the MART representative, which is a different transportation involved committee. So I think that there's been a deficit of representation here based on my ignorance. So I need to do that, but Jasmine may also want to be involved, so I will accept the appointment, but I'd like to, and we may bring this back up.
You can easily resign later if you wish. You can appoint somebody else. What?
Okay.
So the appointment of staff, I think, should go through my office, and I think
Yes.
That's fine. Yeah.
we have too many staff on too many committees.
That's fine.
And I understand that
I'm just saying if we come up-
they're heavily burdened, and this can be.
If we come up with another solution for this, you don't have to throw out the charm if you. But I hear your point.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of Alex Turner for the Montechusett Joint Transportation Committee as our representative for the term indicated in the packet, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Congratulations.
I'd like to make a motion
Nope.
to...
Sorry.
Oh,
Nope.
I was trying to go fast.
I know. Well, very good. Thank you. We have to take one item out of order in main session before going into executive session.
Oh, yes, yes.
Which is listed on,
EII?
is it what? It's AII, isn't it?
Victor Indigo
VII? I don't see that.
New business.
Is it under new business?
It's right in front of you.
Oh my God, right there. Yes, sorry. Town administrator review. Because we were going to go into executive session and then it said not return after. We're going to do the new business, which is the town administrator review, our communication. Then we'll be going into executive session and not returning into open session after that. So, town administrator review. Kate, how excited are you to be reviewed?
Very. I
Right?
feel like I'm being reviewed every day.
So I know there are certain things that are required for reviews and some that are discretionary. I would ask that I would, if you're willing to, although I should ask you, if Select Board Member Allison would be willing to compile for the rest of the board those that are mandated by MGL, and then some discretionary options, and perhaps make some recommendations to us as to how we should conduct the review of the town administrator as the first town administrator review for Kate in her role. Yes? You didn't do one last year, right? No.
Yep, absolutely. I'm in.
Okay, great. So do we have to, we don't have to give him a blessing or put some ashes on him or anything? Okay, great. Fantastic. Everybody okay?
I'm going to square that circle.
It is a real phrase. Anyway, other communications. Town offices will be closed on Monday, June 19th, 2023 in observance of Juneteenth. The select board's next meeting will be held on Monday, June 26, 2023. And I'm going to say this because I know Frank is paying attention somewhere, or was on the screen somewhere. We are going to develop an agenda, although he's not on anymore. Develop an agenda so that we can do it early enough that the planning board, who also has a meeting that night and needs to use the OWL because they have several hearings, we will have an agenda, and I'd ask the board to be available to do a meeting earlier to be able to accomplish that. They meet at what time? 7? 6:30? 7. So I think if we meet at 5:30 and we are judicious in our matters, we can turn this room over to the planning board by 7. Yes? Fantastic. There are no miscellaneous correspondence and memorandum. And now, Jason.
So just to be clear about the executive session, we're going to have 2 executive sessions. One we're going to go into and come out. And the second one we will go into and not come out.
Indeed.
Is that correct? Okay, so I will read the first one, which is make a motion to enter executive session. The Lancaster Select Board will meet in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, 21A for the following purpose. Purpose 2, to discuss strategy relative to the collective bargaining with the Massachusetts Coalition of Police, AGL-CIO, Local 2023 Police. Purpose 2, to discuss strategy relative to collective bargaining with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, Council 93, Local 3720, AFL-CIO, DPW, and Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, specifically to deliberate regarding the response to a settlement agreement proposed by the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFSCME, Council 93, Local 3720, AFL-CIO, Clerical, relative to former employee A. Martin, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town and its select board, and to reconvene in open session thereafter.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, we are in executive session. Thank you all.